Welcome to the Mot Krid Show.
I'm thrilled to welcome a very special guest to the Mot Krid Show this week. Vincent Womack is music director at James A. Fauché Learning Center, an urban K-12 public school in South Los Angeles, after a 7-year tenure at Canoga Park High School, where he was director of instrumental and choral music. From Walt Disney Concert Hall and the Dolby Theater to the Hollywood Bowl and the Cathedral of Our Lady, Vincent has conducted ensembles in the finest venues in Los Angeles and recently initiated and oversaw the completion of a $10 million theater renovation project at Fauché. Due to his efforts to overcome odds and bring high-quality, creative music education to public inner-city schools, Vincent has received the Fulfillment Fund Outstanding Teacher Award, the Bogart USC Family of 5 Teacher Award, the Los Angeles Music Center's Bravo Award, the Mr. Holland's Opus Foundation Award, and ETM LA's Shining Star Award. Vincent also teaches at the Music Teaching and Learning Department at the University of Southern California Thornton School of Music and was previously assistant director of the USC Trojan Marching Band, and he holds a bachelor's degree in music education from the University of Michigan and a master's in music education from the University of Southern California. Vincent and I met years ago at a party at a mutual friend's house. I was just getting established as a freelance drummer in Los Angeles, and Vincent was an up-and-coming trumpet player. It's been decades since we last saw one another, and it's so good to be able to catch up and see each other's social media distancing style. Hey Vincent, welcome to the Mot Krid Show.
Hi Tomas, it's been a long time, but it's great to be with you again after all these years.
It's so good to see you again and to know that you've done brilliantly well throughout the years, still playing and fully involved in music. Could you refresh my memory what your instrument was?
Thank you for that intro. Back in the day, my weapon of choice was the trumpet, but I was also playing piano, I was singing, I was writing songs, and as you may remember, I had my own band. We were playing in any venues that would host original music. So I was doing a little bit of everything.
What have you been up to lately?
Well, I'm living in Los Angeles. I believe I was in the Valley when you and I were hanging out. I'm in the Windsor Hills area. I'm a family man, father to an 11-year-old daughter. Her name is Quinn. She enjoys softball, soccer, swimming, ice skating, Girl Scouts. She really loves Domino's pizza. But I'm teaching at James A. Fauché in Los Angeles. It's a K-12 school. I've been there for about 27, 28 years. I'm on faculty at USC, Thornton School of Music. I get to advance the conversation involving music education. I'm making music, playing horn, piano, singing. I'm doing all that as much as I can and just being part of the LA community.
We have been connected on social media, and I have been able to follow some of the activities you're involved in. We're living in a truly remarkable time these days, mostly difficult circumstances with a pandemic surrounding us and then the murder of George Floyd at the hands of police officers. Awakening an uprising and protests all over the world against police brutality, and more specifically the killing of African American men and women at the hands of our police force. You wrote something on social media that really resonated with me, that I thought should be told over and over and to a larger and larger audience until it becomes reality.
Following the tragic death of George Floyd and the growing protests around the country and the world for racial equality and social justice, I noticed that the public discourse was full of dead-end debate, arguments, and conversations that could go nowhere because not enough people knew enough about history. Some weeks after that, the President of our United States expressed that one of his aides made him aware of the Juneteenth holiday, which he knew nothing of before. Shortly after that, our President expressed that because of him, the Juneteenth holiday was famous. Well, that motivated my sharing of this post. The systemic assault on African history, especially in America, has birthed ignorance and epic lack of understanding. Over 300 years ago, the pervasive Willie Lynch letters were used to create a system for destroying the soul and cohesiveness of Black people. Teach African history in schools, and we will all understand each other better. Teach African history in school and we will all have less difficulty conversing about race. Many individual teachers have taught and promoted the significance of Juneteenth for years, Audrey Carter being one, but not in the schools. One star does not a constellation make. Happy Juneteenth.
Do you have opportunities to bring Black history in your classroom?
Opportunities to teach Black history in the classroom are abundant. I teach music history and I also teach jazz. And in both of those programs, we have the opportunity to teach the history of jazz. And the history of jazz is really the history of the United States and is really the history of Africans in the United States. We go pre-Civil War, looking at blues, looking at ragtime, leading into the history of New Orleans and the cosmopolitan aspect of that. We look at Plessy versus Ferguson, separate but equal, and how that sociologically impacted the United States of America and music. We go into swing and bebop and cool jazz and hard bop. The history of music in America is really the history of Africans in America, African-American history.
Are your students curious? Do they ask questions? Do they question the predominantly white history that's the only reference used in America's classrooms?
Do my students question the whiteness of the history books? Well, you know, as you matriculate through school, at some point, you're just concerned with what you need to do to continue to matriculate. And I think a lot of my students, like many of us have been throughout school, we're just concerned with what are they asking us to do, let me do it, now let me move on. And you're not so much thinking about, well, what's not here? What's missing? What am I not being challenged to learn? I think there is more of a focus on what's not there today than ever before. But beyond that, history is not just for the history class. History should be taught everywhere. History's taught in my music class. There's not one subject that I teach that I don't embed history into it. Be it concert band, jazz band, music technology, drumline, whatever it is, there's history that's being embedded in that class because it's what's needed today.
We can see by now, after a month of protests, that once again our political leaders are failing to meet the challenges to make changes, and police reform has been shelved like so many other important issues. How do you feel about the future?
How do I feel about the future? I'm concerned, but yet hopeful. I'm concerned as this is an election year, and coming up in November, the outcome is most critical. I'm concerned as social media has revealed the many fractures and fissures and fractals that divide us in so many ways as a people. I'm concerned as our President of the United States is stoking the fires of fear, and he's trying to divide us racially, pitting us against each other. But I'm also quite hopeful because I see the huge waves of people across the city, across this country, and across the world of all colors, all generations, all religions, all persuasions coming together in oneness and saying, you know, we won't be divided. We won't be divided. We will continue to reach out to each other and not turn our backs on each other. And we'll continue to try and learn about each other because that's the way the world gets better. I'm really hopeful.
I'd like to ask you about how you're dealing with teaching and live performances during these uncertain times of a health pandemic and social distancing to keep one another safe. I've lost all my gigs, touring is cancelled, and studio work with people actually coming into my studio has been difficult, and we try our best to use masks and distancing. Lately there have been offers to play live shows again, but in consideration of everyone's safety, I've turned down those opportunities. What has your experience been like?
Teaching during COVID-19 has been stressful, especially in the beginning. Teachers have had to learn a lot of new teaching platforms in a small period of time and then using them. So it's been very much like building a plane while flying a plane. I played a trumpet session 2 weeks ago. Everyone was masked up and 6 feet apart approximately. However, there was one violinist that couldn't wear a mask for whatever reason. So they put her in an isolation booth and kept her away from everyone else. I played a music video about a week ago downtown, outside. There were no masks in the actual video, but everyone was distanced. And so they took as many precautions as they could.
What's next for you? What are your plans for the rest of 2020?
For the remainder of 2020, I plan on doing a lot of reading, practicing, preparing lessons, and just getting as ready as possible for the world that we're going to have once this whole thing is over.
It was an absolute pleasure having you on the Mot Krid Show. Please let's do this again soon, and hopefully next time one-on-one and in person. Thank you, Vincent. Welcome back to our Mot Krid Weekly Top 10 feature, where I choose 10 songs regardless of genre and era, 10 songs that I liked in the week gone by, songs that inspired and moved me. Let's jump right in and get started with Cranes in the Sky by Solange, followed by Adam Ness and Blush. Next up, our new release, Heart Pain, now out on Spotify and available everywhere. Then it's Taking Chances with Atom. And we get a message from Resident. Fading is the first of 2 tracks by Chalou this week, and we all share nightmares with Easy Life. Blind, the CRI remix, is by Jean-Michel Blaise. And then it's the second track by Chalou featuring Daya, Oda. And finally, let's avoid all stress. This is by Tycho. Turn up the volume and enjoy this week's Mot Krid Weekly Top 10, now playing on Mixcloud.